we are going to discuss the Monday night action between the Jaguars and the Chiefs. I was very interested going into this game because this was like my favorite game of the weekend. Trevor Lawrence, the Prince, going up. Yes, I stole it from Nick Wright. I love it. Look, Nick Wright ain't copyright claimed the term, okay? So for me, he is the Prince as well. I call him the Prince who was promised because I was a huge Trevor Lawrence guy coming out of college and going into the draft. And we'll discuss this later, I still have just a teeny tiny bit of faith in the future for Trevor Lawrence. So we got Trevor Lawrence going up against Patrick Mahomes. The Jaguars at the time being 3-1. You know, they've beat some mad teams, but they played pretty decent football. They got one of the best defenses in the NFL. And a lot of people thought going into the game that the Chiefs could have stole this game because the Chiefs were 2-2. You needed a win. And the Chargers, they've lost 2 in a row. So this was prime positioning for the Chiefs to pretty much get back on track. And that didn't pretty much seem to be the case. And it was very weird because this wasn't a game that the Chiefs normally lose. Because when you have a game like this where Trevor Lawrence fumbles the ball at the end zone, they come up with no points. And Trevor Lawrence throws an interception, which I think should have been a defensive pass interference. But nonetheless, you get a defensive pass interference that was not called. The defense picks the ball off in your own end zone, and you get points out of that as well. Usually when the Chiefs have these type of games and get these types of turnovers, they normally come away with the win. And at the time, the Chiefs on their very last, their game-winning, should have been their game-winning drive, so to speak. They got the ball roughly with 8 minutes left. And I told myself, I was looking at the clock. And I remember looking at the clock, and there was 6 minutes and 50 seconds left. And I told myself, and I was telling myself this at the time. I was saying, man, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time they're going to leave on the clock. Because at the rate the Chiefs were going, they were going to score around the 2-minute mark. And inevitably, that was the case. But in the same breath, it was like, okay, this is Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. What's the odds of Trevor Lawrence going down the field and scoring a touchdown? And guess what? That actually was the case. But to just talk about the Chiefs as a whole, let's just talk about Patrick Mahomes here. I thought Patrick Mahomes was really good. I thought he was great. He was efficient. Patrick Mahomes, he was 29 for 41, 318 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And I thought he played really good football. And outside of the 1 interception that he did have, granted, that interception, in my opinion, was a great defensive play because if y'all guys will go back and look at the play, essentially Devin Lloyd was under center and he was kind of running like a mid zone and he was strafing over real hard. So he was, I don't know how to explain this in football terms because I'm not a football, I don't know these terms by heart. I don't know what the type of play would be called in football, but essentially it was a disguise type play where Devin Lloyd was on the line. It looked like he was blitzing and he was kind of covered up and Patrick Mahomes couldn't see him. And he ran back into a mid zone like a hook curl in Madden, got to the hook curl and he was there, Johnny on the spot. Patrick Mahomes thought he had to slant down the middle and Devin Lloyd picks it off and runs with a pick 6. But I thought outside of that, Patrick Mahomes played very well. Let's see here. I don't know. Patrick Mahomes, he had a quarterback rating of 78. He had a passer rating of 91, average 7.8 yards per pass. I thought it was pretty good. Now, as a team, this is something else that was really, really weird as well. And this is something that should be deemed a bright spot for the Chiefs fans. You had almost 500 yards of offense. 500 yards of offense. But here's the negative. And this is the part of the reason why the Chiefs lost the game. Penalties. Granted, you can argue, it felt like the Chiefs got majority of the calls, but this wasn't the case. The Jaguars only had 4 penalties. The Chiefs had 13. And 4 of those penalties that the Chiefs had that were on defense gave the Jaguars first downs. So you can surmise that they were absolutely back-breaking penalties. You just cannot win football games that way, in no way, form, or fashion. Specifically, there in the final drive, and you have 43. He got back-to-back holding penalties on kickoff returns. Inexcusable. Even at the time, the Chiefs had 3 timeouts. You had under a minute to get at least a field goal. They could have done it if they would have got the ball roughly at the 35 or the 40 or even the 30. But then you're set up at your own 10-yard line just because of boneheaded penalties. You're just asking to lose the game. And it was something that the Chiefs normally aren't famous for, which is playing super undisciplined football. Now, to talk about their run game was actually very, very much better. Patrick Mahomes, he had 6 carries for 60 yards. Let's just finish this. 7 for 49 for Kareem Hunt. He averaged 7 yards a carry. And Pacheco had 7 for 36. But the thing that is wrong with the Chiefs that I don't understand for the life of me that they cannot fix is Patrick Mahomes week in, week out seems to be their leading rusher, which is not a recipe for success for the Chiefs. The last thing you want Patrick Mahomes doing is being your rushing leader on your ball club. That's just not in the best interest of the team in no way, form, or fashion. And let's move to the defense. Now, I didn't love the defensive pass interference in the end zone. It didn't, it was a bang-bang play. And obviously it was one of those penalties that gave the Jaguars pretty much like a bailout penalty, so to speak. But I didn't love the call, and I don't 100% fault the defense on this part. But we got to talk about that Chris Jones play. That was absolutely atrocious. And I tweeted it on Twitter. I was like, I didn't see the last play. Well, I didn't replay it, but I saw it live, and I to the life of me right now, I really do not understand how Trevor Lawrence was able to get out of that play. He slips on his own center's foot. He's on the floor. He stumbles a little bit more, and the Chiefs still could not get him on the ground. But then I was watching Talk Show Sports yesterday, and they were showing the replay of the final play, and Chris Jones was essentially just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. It was the worst thing that you could put on tape. It is not a good look for the Kansas City Chiefs. It is something that you are not accustomed to seeing by the Kansas City Chiefs. This is something that you would possibly see by worser teams and like franchises who don't know how to win or know anything about winning. But we know that the Kansas City Chiefs have always prided themselves on winning and pride themselves on playing to the best of their abilities and hustling. But that tape by Chris Jones, I wish I had the clip to show you. I'm not going to do that for the course of this podcast, but in your free time, at your own leisure, go look at it. It's absolutely atrocious. And if I'm Chris Jones, we cannot have that. You're the best defensive player on the team. You set the tone, and that is an indictment on what you allowed Trevor Lawrence and that team to do. And something else with the defense, not much of a pass rush. From a defensive perspective, how many sacks did they have? They had 3 sacks. Karlaftis had a half sack. Leo Chanel, he had a half sack. And Yeah. Jalen Watson, he had a corner blitz sack, and Charles Omenihu had a sack. But even with those sack numbers, it really felt like the Chiefs could not get any pressure on Trevor Lawrence, specifically on that final drive. It seemed like Trevor Lawrence had all time to do whatever he wanted, and that is the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will be fine, and they will be able to still, even with this loss, I think they have a chance to compete and be able to win the division despite this loss, because the Chargers have a lot of glaring problems, and they've really lost 2 games that they shouldn't have. More or less the Giants game than the Commanders game, but I still think they got a shot. I think, I don't want to keep saying I think, but I'm not 100% sold on the Broncos, because when it comes to Bo Nix, I believe the Broncos has arguably got like a top 3 defense in the NFL, but Bo Nix is so hit and miss. And I just trust that when Rashee Rice gets here, this offense is going to be on another level. And I think when they see this tape, specifically on defense, I think Coach Spags is going to get these guys together and they're going to play a whole lot, because the defense has been the bread and butter for the Chiefs so far. It's what has been working for 4 out of the 5 weeks outside of this game, because you let the Jaguars drop 24 points on you in the second half. So there it is. Now let's talk about the man of the hour, the man himself. Let's talk about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is someone who I have a lot of faith in still. I may be dumb for this, but I still believe in Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence in this game, let's just go over his stats here. He was 18 for 25. He threw for 225 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I don't count that interception against him, like I said, because I thought that was a defensive pass interference. Look, I know quarterbacks, they love to throw the ball to when they think the receiver is going to be there, but Trevor Lawrence, you got to see that safety there. I mean, that's just a bad throw still. But still, at the same breath, even though it was still a bad throw and a bad decision, you got to have that DPI. Because 20, I think, what was it? 21, I think was roughly the number. He was the one that pushed. I think it was De'Ami Brown who was running around. Or no, it was number 11. It was Parker Washington. Parker Washington was running the slant, and I think it was 21 who pushed him mid-route, and then James Cook just picks the ball off. But outside of that, Trevor Lawrence was really, really, really well. And you saw the things that make you want to come back into believing Trevor Lawrence. Because we saw things like the athletic gifts, that final throw on the final drive on 3rd and 7. Basically a needed throw. Gotta have it. Trevor Lawrence threw the ball on a dime. Tight window. Brian Robinson beats the corner. I don't even know. I think they were running cover 2 if I'm not mistaken. And on that fade route, Trevor Lawrence threw it in the only spot the defense couldn't get it, and only Brian Robinson could. Those are the type of throws that Trevor Lawrence makes that makes you want to come back. It was your needed type throw. But he also does boneheaded mistakes that I think Cohen can fix. And now the boneheaded mistakes are like the worst of the worst. Like, he does things like this. You have the delay of games. You have, which is something that I don't understand for the life of me that he does. Trevor Lawrence loves throwing the ball over the down marker. Over the line of scrimmage. Not a down marker. Over the line of scrimmage. He's done it like 2 times in the last 3 weeks. He is the only quarterback that I have seen do this. I've not seen multiple times throughout a week. I've not seen a quarterback throw the ball over the line of scrimmage more than how many times Trevor Lawrence has. It has been absolutely mind-boggling to me with that. And the turnovers, with the interception, And it's not in this game. I don't want to count that interception against them as well, but it's the games prior to that. The games against the Cincinnati Bengals where he throws the pick that loses you the game. Those are the type of things that Trevor Lawrence does, which is something that he didn't do in college. And I don't want to count the stupid jump over play, which can teams just stop this? I'm not a fan of, and the Bills have quit it with Josh Allen. I know they started to do it with Josh Allen, but I have not seen them do it since. I hate the play where you catch the ball under center on a 1 yard line and you just have your 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" quarterback just reach over and just try and reach for the goal line in midair in front of the defense, where all the linebacker has to do is that and just pat the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands, and that's what inevitably happened. Can we please, Liam Cohen, can you just scratch that play out of the playbook? Just run a sneak, tug the ball in, and just run in the end zone for 6. That's all you got to do. We don't need no jumping over because it forces turnovers. It's the easiest way to get a turnover. And it just irks the life of me when I see that stupid play. But I think this is something that Liam Cohen can fix. Granted, Dave Canales was the original first offensive coordinator under Baker Mayfield in his first year in Tampa. But on another note, when Dave Canales left, it seemed like last year Baker Mayfield was even on if not the same level, but on a higher level under Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we see that Baker Mayfield has been able to translate those skills after Liam Cohen has left. So now that Liam Cohen is here, he has led the Jaguars to a 4-1 record. And I think with a talent, you can't deny it. Trevor Lawrence is one of the most talented individuals at the quarterback position that has came out of the draft in the last 10, 15 years. He is up there with the Josh Allens. Granted, he's not as he can't run. He don't have the running that Lamar and Josh Allen has and Patrick Mahomes. But when it just comes to pure physicality pertaining to how tall he is, the arm strength, the zip and power he has on strong arm, Trevor Lawrence has that. And he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. And I have faith that Trevor Lawrence can take the next step because we've seen it before. The prince who was promised when he I'm gonna call it the J Bowl, the Jayden Bryce Bowl. My two favorite quarterback, arguably one of my two favorite quarterbacks to watch in the NFL. In Trevor, yes, I love watching Trevor Lawrence. I just love watching Trevor Lawrence. Period. I just love how he throws the football. But I essentially want to call it the Jayden Bryce Bowl, where you had Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence 4 years ago in the playoffs, and Trevor Lawrence comes back 21-0 in the second half and leads his team at home to a playoff victory in the wild card round. We've seen him do it before, and we know that he can perform in the playoffs. So why, under Liam Cohen, now that the Jaguars are 4-1, why is this not time now for Trevor Lawrence to get it done? It is go time. And let's just take a quick look at the Jaguars' schedule. They face Seattle this week. That is going to be a good one. That's not going to be an easy win. They face the Rams. They got Vegas, Houston, Chargers, Cardinals, Titans, Colts. Got the Colts twice. You still got the Broncos to play. And you have Tennessee. This schedule is not the easiest, but it is still doable. You're 4-1. You could, let's just say, in the next 2 weeks, you got absolutely brutal teams to play. You got the Rams and Seattle. And you play the Rams overseas. So this is going to be a neutral site. Even if you lose the next 2 games, let's just say the Jacksonville Jaguars go 4-3. I think they're going to beat the Raiders 5-3. They're going to beat Houston. That's 7-3. No, that's 6-3. They can beat the Chargers, but I'm gonna give them a loss. So that's 6-4. The Cardinals, they can beat the Cardinals. 7-4. Titans, They're going to beat the Titans both times. What's that? 7-4. You're going to trade with Indy. So I give them a win at home. 8-5. You're going to beat the Jets. 9-5. At Denver, that's a close one. I'm going to give you a loss there. That's 6-7. I got them possibly at the most is 7 losses. So at 9-7 in an AFC that is wide open could possibly get you in the playoffs, but that is just if they lose the next 2 weeks. Surely they could beat Seattle, and I think they could beat the Rams in a neutral site, and they could possibly beat the Chargers. This is just that is just 7 losses. Surely, I love their defense. I love what they got going on defense, and the sky's the limit for Trevor Lawrence. And I know I've already been talking about this for 20 minutes, and we're going to move on because I don't want to spend too much time on this topic. But, yeah. The Jaguars are for real. Their defense is good enough to compete with anybody. They're like a top 5 defense playing right now in the NFL. And basically, however far they go is on the hands of Trevor Lawrence. If Trevor Lawrence plays turnover-free football, if he can basically turn into what Josh Allen has turned into, where the turnovers have became very rare, Trevor Lawrence can be very successful in the Liam Cohen, and they can win a lot of ball games.